The first time I heard it, I dismissed it. A soft, almost human sigh, echoing from the ventilation shaft above my bed. I was alone, deep in the quiet of my new apartment, and it felt like I wasn't. Moving into the old apartment had been a dream. High ceilings, a perfect view of the city's quiet pulse, and a rent I could actually afford as a freelance graphic designer. It was my sanctuary, a place where I could finally breathe, create, and be utterly, wonderfully alone. The usual symphony of an old building, the creaks, the groans, the settling sounds, were initially comforting. They spoke of history, of lives lived within these walls. For the first few days, my new life felt perfect. Then came the whispers. Not distinct words, just faint, muffled murmurs, like distant conversations heard through thick concrete. They emanated from the vents, sometimes the one in my living room, sometimes the one snaking through the bedroom. I brushed it off. Old buildings had thin walls, busy neighbors. It was just the usual urban hum, distorted by metal ducts. Nothing to worry about. Probably just Mr. Henderson next door, arguing with his phantom cat again. But the whispers grew more defined, more resonant. I started noticing an odd synchronicity. I'd accidentally drop my heavy design textbook, and moments later, a soft, almost imperceptible thump would echo from the living room vent. Or I'd hum a tune to myself, lost in my work with headphones on, and a faint, spectral hum would seem to drift from the bedroom vent. It was never loud, never aggressive, just there. A quiet, unsettling echo. My logical mind scrambled for explanations: air currents, faulty acoustics, the vibrations of the building itself playing tricks. But my gut started to knot. The echoes became too specific to ignore. I'd lean back in my antique desk chair, and its distinct creak would be almost immediately mimicked by a similar, softer creak from the vent. I'd take a sip of water, and a faint, distant glug would follow. It was like living in a perverse funhouse, where every action had a delayed, distorted twin. The feeling of being watched intensified, burrowing deep under my skin. My sanctuary was slowly turning into a stage, and I was the unwitting performer. I had to know. One quiet afternoon, I sat perfectly still, my breathing shallow. I tapped my foot, a slow, deliberate rhythm on the old wooden floor. Asterisk tap. 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 Asterisk. I held my breath. A pause. Then, from the vent in the ceiling, directly above me, a faint, metallic tap-tap-tap reverberated. My blood ran cold. I stopped. The tapping from the vent stopped. I started again, a different rhythm. It followed, perfectly. This wasn't acoustics. This wasn't imagination. This was listening. And learning. My apartment, once a comforting cocoon, became a transparent box. Every move, every sound felt scrutinized. I started moving silently, meticulously. I stopped talking to myself, even internally censoring my thoughts, terrified that somehow it could hear those too. The silence in the apartment became heavy, suffocating. It wasn't the silence of peace, but the silence of anticipation, of an unseen presence holding its breath, waiting for my next involuntary sound, my next unguarded moment. I checked the vents. Nothing but dust, cobwebs, and darkness within the grimy metal. I removed a few grills, peering into the dusty shafts with a flashlight. Just empty ducts, stretching into the unknown depths of the building. I cornered my neighbors, an elderly couple, a young student, asking if they heard anything unusual. They looked at me with polite bewilderment. "No, dear, just the usual," they'd say. My landlord, a man whose face seemed permanently set in an expression of mild annoyance, merely grunted, "Old building, happens." It was just me. Just my apartment. Just my vents. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. My eyes, perpetually strained, started playing tricks. Fleeting shadows, almost humanoid, would dart at the periphery of my vision near the vents. Dust motes in sunbeams would swirl, not with the gentle laziness of air currents, but with a frantic, agitated energy, as if disturbed by an unseen, frantic presence. My mind was unraveling, weaving nightmares into waking reality. Was it exhaustion? Or was it showing itself? It began to mimic the truly personal. The soft, involuntary groan I made when I stretched my back after hours hunched over my desk. The distinct rustle of my favorite silk robe as I put it on. A muffled cough, identical in pitch and timing to the one I'd just suppressed, feeling a tickle in my throat. It wasn't just sounds from the apartment anymore. It was my sounds. It was observing, learning, and absorbing the very essence of my being. It was becoming me, one stolen sound at a time, from within my own sanctuary. One night, I lay awake, eyes wide open in the oppressive darkness. The apartment was utterly silent, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then, from the vent directly above my head, a whisper emerged. It was soft, distorted, like a voice filtered through static and distance. It spoke my name. Alex. Not my voice, but an echo twisted, stretched, and utterly alien. Then, it repeated a sound I had made just hours earlier, a small, frustrated sigh I'd uttered when a design wasn't working. A private sound meant only for me. The horrifying realization hit me like an icy wave. It wasn't just listening to me, it was becoming me, from the inside out. It was already here, deep within the structure of my life, a parasitic mimic, ready to take over. I still live here. Where else would I go? It knows too much. Every silence is fraught, every sound a potential echo. It has absorbed my privacy myself. It is a part of me now, or I, a part of it. And it's still listening, always listening. Waiting for me to forget it's there, just for a moment, so it can make a sound that's entirely mine, but spoken by its unseen, unknowable self. And sometimes, late at night, I hear it. Not an echo, but an original sound. A soft, satisfied hum from the vents. And I wonder, whose hum is it truly now?